Got some nasty steering play on this GMC Pickup, a turbo odor from the exhaust, and some pretty viable oil leaks on this GMC Pickup. We dive in on this edition of Inside the Garage. So getting underneath the GMC Pickup, we can easily see where the oil pan area and the transmission bell housing is leaking. Common problem is the rear lip on the oil pan and the rear main seal, unfortunately. Here's a tip. Avoid mixing blends of oil. Use full synthetic oil, stick with it. Use semi-synthetic oil, stick with it, because mixing those blends can cause problems with those seals. Now we're going to utilize an engine oil dye with an ultraviolet light to figure out where that leak is coming from. Now in this case, we see dye all over the inside of the bell housing. The second step is we've got a lot of play in this wheel, and that's an indication that we've got an inner tie rod from this steering gear along with some pretty nasty leaks. If it was just the inner tie rod, we could easily replace that, but because this steering gear is leaking like a sieve, we're going to replace the whole unit. Let's get started on the repairs to the GMC. If you're pulling your flywheel, you need to make sure that you mark on the flywheel itself to the flange of the rear crank hub, the rear seat, the rear nub of that crankshaft. Because if you're not reseating this in its original position, you could have balance issues. Now that we got the transmission separated, the flywheel off, now we can see that the rear main seal on this is the actual culprit. So here's the rear main seal. It's rubber. Some of these seals will actually have a retaining spring inside. That spring can come apart over time. What happens is the rubber on this lip of the seal can actually start getting hard and brittle and lose its ability to keep that oil splashing towards the crank side and not outside of that seal towards the exterior of the engine block. We're going to get all those nuts and bolts washed up in our parts washer and get everything reassembled and then move on to the steering gear. I got a tip for you guys. If you're doing your steering gear, make sure that the sector shaft is aligned to the steering wheel. The best way to do that is to lock that steering wheel. You can use a bungee cord or some tight rope to keep it nice and straight so you can easily get that shaft on the steering column into the sector shaft of the rack and pinion. So let's get the steering gear pulled off this GMC truck. So we'll get the new rack and pinion in place, get the alignment done on our Hunter Quick Elite machine. Be running straight down the road, nice and dry. Appreciate you guys hanging in our loud, noisy garage. I gotta tell you guys, it is hotter than a mug in Phoenix this time of year, so I do apologize for the background noise, but we ain't shutting off the coolers. It's way too hot. So thanks again for stopping by our humble garage. If you like the videos, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. If you've got any car care conundrums, bring them down on the comment section and we'll do our best to get those videos up. Once again, I'm Frank from this edition of Inside the Garage.